All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session in our 032 Play, the first ever esports academy in Cebu. And before we start, allow me to introduce myself. I am Jules Dominic Aspera from 032 Play, and I will be the moderator for today's session. The one who will be joining with us today is the CEO Claim to Fame Entertainment, a US based startup that handles esports events and app based branding solutions for esports personalities. Let us welcome Campmaster Mike Crossman.
Hey guys,
Hello, sir. Good evening to you. How are
good
you
evening.
feeling today?
Ready to go. It's 7 in the morning here, so
Good
nice
morning.
fresh
Good
in the
morning.
morning.
That's really great. Before we head to the discussion, may I ask one quick question to you?
Sure.
Uh, in Production 101, what is your specialty?
My specialty would be pre-production and probably outreach to sponsorships.
Mm-hmm.
Then managing the event, like a tournament organizing.
Okay. That's wonderful. And I think at this point, you can now start your discussion, Campmaster Mike.
Sure. Okay. So as I said before, everything about esports and the esports production is the pre-planning. Once you get to the event, obviously you run into stuff, but doing the event is pretty much just a roller coaster ride. But everything is about pre-production, and from my experience, you really want to have everything lined up before. You want to have a great tournament organizer. You want to have your sponsorships. You want to have the logistics of how the event's going to run. You want to have the timing. Obviously, you want a venue selected, and I'll go through each of those things based on, your responsibilities and the execution of them. And so, like I said, the biggest thing is the pre-production and managing the tournament and the time and the venue, like internet, spacing, and just making sure that everything flows and it has that theme that you're trying to represent. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to ask a question. One of the biggest events we've ran was a Smash Brothers event, and uh, we selected a location. And one of the biggest things was to make sure that the internet was stable enough to run the stream. So my responsibility was to come into the venue and make sure that the internet ran. So we did a test run, a test production of the event, and those are key that you can get in there, you can set everything up, and you can run like a mini event for like maybe an hour or two. Maybe you have friends and family come in, and you just do like a small version of your big event, and you get the logistics of it. You get the timing, and you get the scheduling of the tournament organizer. You get the scheduling of the shoutcasting, and you get just the flow of how the event's going to go. Because then you run in. There's different problems that you run into when you go live, and I'll go through that as well. So the biggest thing about pre-production is you know setting up the bracket and making sure that you have a bracket available for the players at least 3 days prior to the event. So you want to make sure that you have uh, everybody signed in, everybody ready to go at least a week before so that you can create a bracket. And then 3 days before, I like to say 3 or 4 days before the event, have the bracket ready to go and times included. So everyone knows when round one starts. And then based on time and management, you know when round two starts. So if people are still in round one, people can go around, get some food, or do whatever they can do in the venue. So that's very important with the tournament organizer. So if you're the tournament organizer, you need to be part of that pre-production uh, with everything, including the event. Then there's obviously the sponsorships and vendors. You want to make sure that you're reaching out. You're letting the sponsors know what they're going to get, their packages, and then the placement inside the venue. And again, that comes in with the pre-production and the execution of where everything's going to go. The next thing is the management of the event, check-ins. Especially if you're doing a live event, you have to have everyone check in. So you want to start check-in at least an hour to an hour and a half early, depending on how big your event is. Everyone's line everybody in, check in, give them a wristband to know what game they're playing and what tournament organizer they need to talk to. Make it clear and present that they need to, the rules when they're signing up, when they're signing in and they're paid. Clear and present that you need to go to the tournament organizer. This is the assigned tournament organizer for your event, for your game. And everything is just, really by the books when you go to it. It's the pre-production, then the tournament organizer takes over, and then you just really manage and maintain, the internet, the stream, make sure they abide by schedule, and then excuse me, and then you make sure that everything goes and just flows, and that's really, once the event starts going, it kind of runs itself. You really just let it go, and then you make sure that you have an answer for some of the questions that come up. And for example, one of the problems was, we called a match, somebody didn't hear their name, and it snagged up the bracket. So when you have 128 players, you want to make sure that you're going and you're making sure that the players are playing, that they're reporting their matches, and so that's really just the management of the actual production of the event. Um, so once that gets going, it's basically, it kind of, like I said, it runs itself. It really goes in, and you're just really hoping that there's no problems, and if there's problems, you're just managing it. So you're just managing the next solution, and obviously keeping open communication. Everything always needs to be transparent, because if you try to keep things away from people, then it goes. That's when it's the worst. Communication is the biggest thing to running an event and having the production go well. Um, one of and I'm going to go right back to the pre-production. The biggest thing is, one of the biggest things that we ran into was prepayment and payment at the door. Um, I would always suggest that you have a prepayment option, because then that they're going to show up, and if they don't show up, then you still at least have, um, the money that you're relying on for the event. Now, what we did was, 3 to 4 days before, we cut off paybacks. So if somebody couldn't make bracket for at last minute, emergencies, we let them get a refund, but we made it clear at the beginning that once the bracket's set, there was no refunds, and that's important. Again, being transparent with the production value, of how and when people can sign up, when they can get refunds, and if you have a waiting list, making sure that you can get them in. And that the reason why we did that is, if we're making the bracket and someone has to leave, a couple days before we make the bracket, that we can slide them in based on their rank and based on redoing kind of the whole bracket based on player rank. Because it gets messy if the number one player decided he didn't want to go, and then he wants to come, and now you have to redo the whole bracket based on new players coming in. So it's always, again, when you're making an event, you always want to be very transparent on how the procedure is done, and where they can get a refund, or where everything's locked and it's final. Um, that's just one of the biggest things that we used to run into on our weekly events. People would prepay, come in, and not show up, and then ask for their money back. And, it's just, you're running a business. So you need to make sure that that's all out there for the people. And that goes the same for vendors. Uh, you write up a contract for a vendor, you tell them what they're going to get, their space. And then if they can't make it, they have to make sure that they have their, contract in their contract, that there's no refunds after a certain date, just so that you're not losing out on that income based on paying for the venue or paying for the space or whatever. So those are the biggest things when it comes to like the pre-production. The logistics of it, that's the tournament organizer. So what I did on our last event was I had a tournament organizer there, and I had a stream manager. So I was in between both, making sure that we were calling the matches and we were getting the stream matches up and ready to go. And so I just coordinated between those two. I managed both of them at the same time. So when the tournament organizer was saying, "Yeah, we're getting into round two," I had to make sure that the stream was ready for round two. So you have to just make sure you have a team in place. That there's going to be someone with the production, and the tournament organizer, and somebody with the stream. And that was my job for that event. And then obviously helping the tournament organizers. Um, with just continuing to do the live experience, the live events. So scheduling is huge when it comes to it, and that's you want one person focusing on that, and then you want to make sure you have a team on that. So we had about for a 128 person esports event, we had about 20 staff. So yeah, that's I mean that I think that's around you want 1 to 4, for every one player, you want 4 staff. That's basically how you want to do the math. So that's around 32 staff members. So we were a little under, but we knew the game. We had the pre-production, everything. We've ran our event at that venue already, so we knew how everything was going to flow. We just needed more setups and more space. So uh, that's a key thing. You want to make sure you have the right staff and the right amount of staff, just so that you don't get overwhelmed. And um, whether it's volunteer or paid, you gotta just make sure that those are clearly lined out, and that's part of the pre-production. That's part of the logistic managing, is making sure you know who's going to help and what they're doing and what their job is. And the key thing is to make sure that that's all they focus on. You don't want somebody saying, "Hey, what else can I do?" No, you just tell them, "This is your job. This is what you do." And if we need something extra after a couple rounds, um, we can go to somebody and ask them. But once I know with the live events, once it starts getting the later rounds, people start leaving. People, it opens up more space, so it gets less hectic. But you still want to have the same people doing the same things, and obviously you want to have someone like myself in a management position just to manage those things. So it's a lot. It's not just let's put a video game on and just let people play. There's a whole back end to it. There's a whole management to it. There's making sure you have your logistics laid out. You have your schedule done. And then, of course, there's setup and breakdown. We own all our equipment, so we had to set everything up. So we were there, 3 hours before, making sure everything was up and running, make sure the internet was good. We had the stream going. We had a pre-production, meeting, and then we breakdown. Then another hour, 2 hours of breakdown. So we had an 8 hour event, a 10 hour event. 3 hours before, after, or before, and then 2 hours after. So it was a full day, and you get pretty tired. It's more mentally tiring than anything, but you're just happy if a good event goes. It's nice and easy to break down, and you have a good time, and you talk to people, and you get to mix in with the community and have some fun games and stuff like that. So uh, that's those kind of events are the best. So when you have a good event, it goes smoothly, and then the best part of it is just like the breakdown, knowing that you had a good event. So that's basically that's the very, I guess, the concept of production 101. Like, the very general rule of esports production. Then you can go more in depth about like the execution, scheduling, like very in depth about scheduling, uh, problems that you may arise where you go in and uh, the thing about live event problems is you have to really think on your feet. You really need to make sure that you have somebody that can answer the questions, and that's all about like the manager managing it. Like, do you have a great TO that when there's a when there's a tournament problem that he can answer it? So if you have a great TO and a great stream production manager, that's the really biggest keys of flowing an event. Then everybody else can really manage, like, okay, hey, you go over here to play. This is your section. This is who you're playing. But the two pillars of esports production, and from my experience, is an amazing tournament organizer and an amazing stream production manager. If you have those two, you're pretty much set, because you can take care of everything else. Then everything else is just like a normal entertainment event. And then and that's the experience I had, and that's the advice I have been given is, if you have those two things, you're pretty set on running a nice smooth event.
All right. I think that's all. Is that all you have to say?
Yeah, I think if we get some questions, once we get into the question part, I think that's when I can get into a little bit more stuff. But that's very the general, production, pre-production, execution of an event.
All right. All right. We will now proceed to the Q&A Google Meet where other students are waiting. Thank you for your wonderful discussion in tonight's session, Campmaster Michael. See you on
Thank
the
you.
other side.
See you there.